Hello, friends. Jim here with Science Talk, and kind of thought I'd do a follow up. And I did a video segment quite some time ago discussing issues that marine life face with a warming ocean, and more information along the topic lines there. Basically, ectotherms, colloquially called cold-blooded organisms, well, the ectotherms and poikilotherms, which are basically organisms that are not able to maintain a constant body temperature, internal body temperature. Their body temperature changes with the ambient, so hence the term. Endotherms or homeotherms are able to maintain a steady body temperature. And there are certain fish that are indeed endotherms. Sharks, like the great white, is an endotherm. Tunas are endotherms. I think marlins as well. So the whole notion, well, mammals are warm-blooded, everything else is cold-blooded. That's wrong. Well, mammals are birds. That's just wrong. You have to take it species by species. Anyway, I digress. But what we're basically seeing is that heat extremes are basically presenting twice the risk for ectotherms and poikilotherms and for the sea life, which is not good. Now, when you think about it, right, as I discussed numerous times before, water has a very high specific heat. It takes a lot more energy to warm up the same volume of water than it does the same volume of air. So you now have all this energy in the water. It's not going to dissipate as readily. This is going to create physiological stress for the organisms. So new research suggests that ectothermic sea life may be twice as likely to be at risk as the land-dwelling counterparts. This is the twice as much at risk as an unexpected finding. Now, I have said in the past, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but not really, that this planet should have the name Oceanus, not Earth, because most of the planet is ocean. Now, if you have fish, okay, fish can move. They can, and I did a video segment on the documenting just that very thing. They will either move to deeper waters to where it's cooler, and or move to higher latitudes where it is cooler. And fish can do that. But researchers from the U.S., and this is a report that was published in the journal Nature, and one of the investigators was Malin Pinsky of Rutgers University in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And what they did was they took a closer look at the data available on what they term as thermal discomfort zones, those moments when an ectothermic organism begins to overheat and needs to get to a cooler space. Okay? And so what they're actually finding is that, for example, spiders and lizards that survive in the tropics and temperate zones may stand a better chance of finding somewhere to hide and cool off, thus surviving any heat wave, than their marine counterparts. Think about it. You're in the water. Where are you going to go? Unless you go deeper or you go to a higher latitude. Now, if you go deeper, are you going to find your food? At least on the land, you get nightfall, cools down. And then you can forage, what have you. You go under, get into a shade. Okay, you get through it. You can survive the heat extremes better on land than in the water. So Dr. Pinsky states, we find that globally, marine species are being eliminated from their habitats by warming temperatures twice as often as land species. Findings suggest that new conservation efforts will be needed if the ocean is going to continue supporting human well-being, nutrition, and economic activity. Keep in mind that majority of people on this planet live within 100 miles of a coastline. Many of these people rely on resources from the ocean for food. This is all coming under threat. So Dr. Pinsky, this is a report in the journal Nature. They searched the literature for detailed information on 400 species and calculated the safe conditions for 88 marine and 294 land animals. They also identified the coolest temperatures available to each species during the hottest parts of the year. They found on average fish and marine animals were more likely to live on the edge of temperatures that could become dangerously high. Land animals, insects, reptiles, could simply disappear into the forest, seek shade, go underground. Sea organisms cannot do that. That terrestrial reptiles, amphibians, and marine animals are at risk is not news, right? This has already been documented, reported, and published. Okay? Significant movements of sea species in response to heat extremes off the California coast has been documented. That's as an example, and I've discussed that. Right? It's easier for a fish to say, okay, out of here. There's been repeated evidence that rising global temperature has begun to affect commercial fisheries, and other researchers have made it emphatically clear that only determined human action to contain global warming and protect breeding grounds can keep fish in your refrigerator, in your freezer, on your dinner table. So let's do a little breakdown. Now, the data is a bit limiting, but there's some teasing, parsing of the data that can be shared. Of 159 separate studies, 153 were in the Northern Hemisphere, 137 were from the temperate latitudes. Of the marine ectotherms, 7% were pelagic. That means swimming in the open waters of the ocean. These are the fish, cod, tuna, as example. They can move. Hey, it's hot here. I'm going to go deeper. I'm going to go further north or further south. I'm going to go to higher latitudes. And that's when, especially when the surface temperatures get too warm, the upper, say, 100 meters or so, out of here. The remaining 93% included slow-moving bottom dwellers, also referred to as epibenthic. Benthic organisms are in the substrate. Epibenthic live on the surface of the substrate. Examples would include lobsters, horseshoe crabs, abalone, snails. You get the idea. So, abalone, snails, not exactly the fastest moving of critters, and they may have nowhere to go when life literally gets hot, when they find themselves in, use a colloquialism, boiling water. So the researchers make it clear they are not talking about complete global extinction of species. They use the phrase local extirpations, basically localized extinctions. They make it clear that land-dwelling ectotherm organisms are by no means safe from increasingly frequent intense episodes of heat extremes, right, heat waves. They would continue to be vulnerable to what the researchers call local refugia, local refuges. So if the refuges become compromised, they are at increased risk. That's another reason when they do, you cut this bit of woods here, but you leave this bit standing, and you cut over here, so you do almost like this checkerboard pattern. Okay, that's habitat fragmentation, and oftentimes an animal that lives in the woods, it comes across this, now there's this open area, it will not traverse it, so it stays in a little reduced area, which often is detrimental to the organism. So we have to also consider changes in how the land is used itself in determining what's happening to the species, which makes sense. It's always going to be a number of factors that affect an observed response. Now, when we're talking about these increasingly physiological stress on organisms, if they're in the open ocean, chances are quite high that they are what is referred to as stenothermal, meaning that they can only tolerate a narrow range of temperatures. Get outside this range that is preferred, it puts them into that discomfort zone that was mentioned earlier. If the organism is eurythermal, meaning they can handle a wide range of temperatures, they're going to be less affected. But now, usually also with stenothermal organisms, you have stenohaline organisms. Now, an organism that's stenothermal is also usually an organism that is stenohaline, meaning it can only tolerate a narrow range of salinity, as opposed to euryhaline organisms that physiologically can tolerate a wide salinity range, such as organisms found in estuaries. You go from 10 parts per thousand for the salinity up to 32. When the tide's in or tide's out, when you have fresh water coming in, oceanic water coming in, etc. So that has to also be taken into consideration. And, these organisms most likely are evolved attuned to a narrow temperature range. You start messing with that, it's going to compromise the physiology and affect their survival. So there you have it. Marine organisms are at increased risk now as the water warms up around them. Thank you for your time. Hey folks, this is Jim here reminding you to please subscribe to my channel and please share my videos with others. Also remember to click the bell so that you know when I drop in a new video. I also ask that you please consider becoming a patron of my channel and support the work that I do by going to patreon.com/Science Talk with Jim Massa, each word separated by an underscore, and becoming a patron. It's asking for as little as $3 a month, cost of a cup of coffee, to support the work I do and keep my informative videos coming your way. Thank you for your support.